first. How are you feeling now watching him play?
I think that he has performed as well as anyone has any right to expect him to perform. He has made a major contribution to the team in his usual ways, and it's very heartening. It suddenly has elevated them to where people out on the outside are recognizing that you cannot have a discussion about a potential Eastern Conference finalist without discussing the Boston Celtics. And he is the addition that makes that possible.
A lot of people are saying the risk might not be worth the reward. Where do you land on that when it comes to Jason Tatum?
Well, none of us, we're all amateur doctors, right? And we have no idea. We've seen terrible things happen to people. We've seen, and we've seen people that have come through adversity of this nature and are doing very well, i.e., or e.g., excuse me, Kevin Durant, e.g., Klay Thompson, who, by the way, has offered his personal advice to Jason Tatum. We learned today that about how to negotiate this and mentally as well as physically. And that's a very nice thing for him to do. So anyway, this thing, the outlook is put it this way. We were having this discussion last Wednesday, it would have been a lot different. But right now, starting on Friday night, it's a very heartening discussion. He could, no, it's not a done deal, and he's got a ways to go. But the point is, even at this level of comeback readiness, he's making an addition, a big addition to the team.
Were you a little worried when you saw that first air ball? Or you were like, nah, he's just.
I laughed at that. Yeah, not really. I kind of laughed, but the first air ball, right? And no, it wasn't the air ball. It was the missed dunk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he drove the lane and elevated. And when you saw the replay, it wasn't as if sometimes the ball slips out of your hand. You hit the back rim. No. He hit the front. He hit the front of the rim on the way up. He didn't elevate enough. And that one had you a little worried. But then his first basket, remember what it was a two-hand, I call it armpit dunk.
Mm-hmm.
He dunked to the pits, boys. He was up there for that one.
He made the tough play look easy there, right? Like effortless.
And then he followed that up on the very next possession with the classic that they can make the necessary accommodation to each other and to the situation. And I think it's to Brown's credit, because people questioned him in that regard. No, he's going to allow Tatum back in very comfortably.
Yeah, I think you saw this happening when the Vucevic trade went down, right?
I like the Vucevic trade very much, and now that he, even though had become enamored of Simons, I was very, very big on him. But Vucevic gives him a dimension. But right now they won't have him for 3 or 4 weeks. But that said, they will survive because Brad Stevens has assembled a roster that is so useful. And Luka Garza is back in the picture again. And he was making I won't say he's making a contribution to the same level that Luke Cornett did last year, but it's about 3/4 of that. And it's helpful to the big picture. He brings some offense. He brings some hustle. They're not bereft of talent at that position now. And Keita is stepping up. He's growing into his job. We know that. And so they're going to have the rim protector, and they're going to have the offensive 3-point shot. They're not. Well, they're going to be okay in the middle. They would have been better with Vucevic, and eventually, if it's 3 to 4 weeks, so he will presumably be available for the playoffs.
Is it fair to say that Peyton Pritchard has been playing at an all-star level at times this year?
I want to warn you about me and Pritchard. I want to adopt him. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that going back to Oregon. But what we are seeing is a triumph of professionalism that is so heartening to see. Oh, I don't need to start. I don't care. I want to help the team. I'll get my minutes. I'm not worried about that. There was never a question about him acquiescing to that. Look at the way he's playing. That kid, first of all, he's a great 3-point shooter, we know. But what I like it is when he gets one of those hapless big men in the lane and starts to put him in the revolving door. And, is he going to take the step back? Is he going to take an up and under? Is he going to go to his right? Is he going to go to his left? He's a clinic in there at 6 feet, whatever, 1, 2, whatever the hell he is. No, he's a tremendous asset. He's coming out. He's the reigning 6th man of the year. He's very valuable player. And I'll say this, Andrew. I'm not saying he's one of the all-time greatest Celtics, but on my personal list of favorites, he's in my top 5. Just
So
personal favorite.
you mentioned the step back move. SGA had a nice one to win the game yesterday. Who does he remind you of, being the historian you are?
SGA, he's in the Michael lineage. He's in the Michael lineage of that a lineage style. He brings that kind of dynamism, I think, to in terms of pure guards. It's I don't know. It's hard. He's a modern 21st century athlete. Such as we did not have 30 years ago. I'll be honest about that. He could be the first SGA for that matter. But now, by the way, there is a Michael Air in the game right now. And I mean, there's a lineage that started with Elgin Baylor, went through Elgin Baylor, Julius Erving, Michael Jordan, and guess who it is now?
Anthony Edwards.
Bingo.
There you go.
That is the correct answer.
What about Ant's game reminds you of Jordan?
The total swagger.
Ooh.
That it's a bleep you game. Now, that Michael had, and without being offensive, it's just that he knows he's better than you. He knows he can do this. And it's the way he carries himself. I picked up on this, earlier this year. Said, "Oh my God, I'm going to blaspheme here. I'm going to use his name in the same breath as Michael, as it reminds me of that lineage, that style. I think Ant-Man has those qualities, and of course the size. It starts with the physical package, same basic size, same basic attributes, but there's a certain je ne sais quoi about bleep you that he has that not everybody has."
Speaking of Jordan, Max Kellerman recently came out and said Michael Jordan would average 40-point triple-double in the modern NBA. Thoughts?
These discussions, they're fun to have, but they're useless. I mean, Bird, I've seen people putting Bird up and yes, no, maybe, give me a break, Okay, come on, Michael, both of them would flourish in this game. Larry, remember, when Larry played, I don't think if he took 3 threes in a night, that was a normal night. If
right.
He used it strategically. He didn't, it wasn't part of the game. It was an adjunct to the game. It wasn't, the game wasn't built around it the way, Steph's game is, for example, and many others now, So these guys, if you told Larry you can take 9 or 10, you think he wouldn't average 35 points a game? Come on. Of course he would.
Yeah.
And so, no, there's discussions, hey, barroom discussions, talk show discussions, part of the deal, part of being a sports fan, that's fine. But if you're going to get involved, you better bring some decent ammunition. And don't. Too many of these people have no idea about how good some of the other older players were.
I think you're speaking to the same tune as Michael Jordan was on a recent interview, right? I think they asked him who's the GOAT, and he basically said what you're saying.
Well, I'm from the same area. I mean, the same vintage. I mean, I'm a lot older than he is too. But it's fun. I have a perspective. I used to say, when LeBron, I'm kind of deviating a little bit here, but
all good.
When LeBron was in high school, and they started televising his games. Remember, there were games, and I said at the time, I wrote this in Basketball Weekly. I remember, Basketball Times. I said, I'm not going to watch any of these games. I'm not going to get privy to this hype. I have seen every great player of the last 50 years, and when this kid comes into my view, I will take a look at him. Now, I've seen every great player of the last 70 years, and that's the way I look at things. You show me. I'm not going to get involved in the hypes and all that nonsense. I kind of deviated there, but you mentioned LeBron.
All good.
And LeBron's lived up to it. He's lived up to everything, that he should have.
I hate to ask.
Few do, Andrew. Few do. There's a big difference in the historical perspective between the top of the line players who overachieved compared to what the expectations were, and the players who hyped as adolescents who lived up to everything. I only think of 4 guys who fit in that category in America.
Who's that?
Well, number 1, Wilt. Wilt Chamberlain was known. 2, Lou Alcindor. 3, LeBron. Okay? The fourth is a peripheral one if you know how big he was in the 50s and 60s. And his NBA career was good enough to get in the Hall, but he's not on that exalted level in people's minds. And I'm sure many people, I'm going to mention the name now, are going to say, who? Jerry Lucas.
Oh,
Jerry
wow.
Lucas was an extraordinary high school star and a three-time All-American at Ohio State, won a championship as a sophomore. They lost in the finals 2 years in a row. He was hurt in one of them, by the way. Anyway, he was extraordinary, and star of the Olympic team in 1960. And then, his NBA career was not at that level, but it was distinguished, And by the way, speaking of guys who would flourish today, oh my God, his three-point shooting. He was a three-point shooter before it was even a thought. He would have been a phenomenal. He had the three-point shot 50 years ago.
Who's that?
Jerry Lucas.
Oh, Jerry Lucas. Okay. Well,
yeah.
the next guy on that list could be Wemby.
Wemby is definitely the first European. And I was thinking, absolutely, he is the next guy on the list. You was 100% correct. If there was one other European that maybe people, would say would be in this category, and that was Arvydas Sabonis, because I'm sure he was a prodigy he was then the USSR. He's Lithuanian, of course, and but other than that, think about it. Magic was very well known in Michigan. He wasn't known in California. He wasn't known in Boston. Michael Jordan, he was just another all-state guy from in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
And when he came out of North Carolina, Larry, by the way, it's a phenomenal book out by Keith O'Brien. I recommend it to everybody, called Heartland. He's going to be making the rounds now. It's stuff about Larry in the background and the extraordinary story that is Larry Bird. It's a tremendous, tremendous read. But Larry's lucky he got recruited, let alone being hyped. But LeBron, cover Sports Illustrated at age 15, et cetera, et cetera. He's lived up to it all. But no one has had a career like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, there's a phenomenal book called Drive, too.
Well, thank you. No, but I learned stuff from Keith O'Brien, even though I did the first book with Larry.
Yeah. We talked about LeBron a little bit. The Lakers' record is better without LeBron, but there's no way their ceiling is higher without LeBron, right? That would be
You wouldn't
insane.
think so. You wouldn't think so, but something's going on there. I don't know what it is. I don't see them enough to know. But that is disturbing. But your common sense says, it can't be. And by the way, they're not contenders. Just a matter of what round they get knocked out. Do you think?
So Dana Barros, regularly on my show, I know he played for your Celtics. He thinks they're actually a sleeper.
Well, okay, fine. We're all entitled to our opinion. I don't see it. No,
Really?
no, seriously. I respect it.
Well, did you see what Luka did to the? Did you see what Luka did to the Knicks? He's been getting a lot of hate lately, Bob Ryan. A lot of hate for Luka out there.
Well, because of his whining.
Mental contagion. It's mental contagion. People are just copying each other's takes.
Because of his whining, that doesn't help him. He's and now he's got to worry about technical foul. You know that, right? Got 15 techs.
Also, he took a charge and went like this. Did you see that?
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, all right. Well, we can. I just happen to disagree. I'm not taking the Lakers that seriously. And if they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. Who cares? I just don't see it. I wouldn't put any money on them at all.
The East is wide open, right? Have you ever seen the East this wide open?
I can't remember anything like this. Because you can make a case, obviously, but there's nobody to be afraid of. Everybody can look at and say, we got a shot. Why not us? Obviously Detroit's been in front from the beginning, but they're reeling right now, and nobody was afraid of Detroit. Obviously the Knicks have a roster that on paper may be the best roster in the Eastern Conference, but they got to go out and do it. And right now, something's always happening. Whether they're bitching about Towns doing this or not doing that. Right now, Bridges is in a free fall for whatever reason. But I like their roster a lot. And I thought the pickup of Alvarado was very good, by the way. And they got immediate dividends that night against the Celtics. But I think I think they're going to be. Don't ever count them out until we see them. Of course, now we have the Celtics, and they have every reason to say, why not us? And meanwhile, the hottest team in the conference, if not the league, is Charlotte. And and how about Concanupal, who'll be the rookie of the year on flag?
Who does he remind you of? Concanupal.
Canipple. All right. Yeah, there's we've seen. I hate to say it, but it is going to be a white guy. That's the way it works.
I thought he was Clay. I said he was Clay Thompson with a better layup package before the season.
Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. It could be. Well, though I have a lot of respect for Clay Thompson, believe me. And no, but he's in that. I'll put it this way: he's a worthy heir to the worthy heir. I'll put it that way. He's in that discussion. Remember, I was talking earlier about lineage, he's in that lineage.
Yes.
Go back to guys like Dick Snyder. Go back to guys like Lou Hudson. There's a good comparison right there. And so
Lou Hudson the guy that played with Pistol Pete with the Hawks?
Yes, and Lou Hudson.
They didn't get along, him and Pete.
Who looked like a Smothers brother, by the way. Always cracked me up. I forget whether it was Tom or Dick, but he looked like a Smothers brother.
He didn't get along with Pete very well.
Hawks were a fragmented team. They did not lack talent, but it didn't work. Pete, the whole thing didn't work.
Yeah.
The way it should have.
Yeah. And then Pete would have won a championship with Larry Bird, but he decided to retire.
Well, yeah. Well, he retired because he didn't want to play for Bill Fitch. And Bill Fitch treated him like crap. He didn't want him, and he didn't treat him with any respect. And Pete quit. Ernie DiGregorio, same thing. He didn't want to play for Bill Fitch.
Yeah,
it's true.
So much of winning championships is about who you have on your roster. I feel like Pete felt victim to that, and then people will label you as not a winner, but your team's not good enough often,
Yeah, they had, Walt Bellamy, who was a controversial player, of whom the great, I think it was one of the Philadelphia writers once said that Walt Bellamy was the skeleton in the closet of the 20,000 point club.
Yeah,
I love that one. No, they were flawed. They had some talent, but they were flawed. But the Pete saga, it never worked. Then he got traded to New Orleans, and he's the whole show. And in the NBA, it didn't work out the way it should have.
Where does Jokic rank all time for you? Top 10, top 5? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's very good because he's barreled his way into the discussion of all-time great centers. How can you say that? Look, there's a holy trinity that you start with, and you pick your favorite, and I'll allow you to argue your case for A, Bill Russell, B, Wilt Chamberlain, and C, Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You draw the line after that. Now it starts. There's anybody argued anybody other than one of those three as being as good as those three and their impact on the NBA? No, you're wrong. So you draw the line. Who's number 4? I say Hakeem. Yeah. Okay, I'm a Hakeem guy. Okay, Jokic is certainly going to enter right now at 5, and maybe even 4. And then if the career, he's 31, right?
Yep.
If the career goes long enough, people might even dare, risk blasphemy and put him into context with the big 3. And I can understand if you want to do that because we're seeing numbers. Last night was just routine. What was it? 30-something, 13, blah, blah, blah. We're numbed to it. His nightly greatness in that regard. Totally numb to it. He's a different kind of player than any of those 3. We know that. The big 3, He's not as, but so he's going to muscle his way into the discussion. And when it's all said and done, I think he's going to be a proper guy to argue belongs in that holy trinity.
Well, the thing he does differently, and it's a little Arvinas Sabonis, like he initiates offense. He's a point center, so it's the evolution of the game.
Yes, he does. He does. Yeah. And now, the Wilt, of course, had 3 phases of his career. He has the I'm going to score 40, 50 points a game career. Then in the middle phase with the 76ers, oh my God, when he led the league in assists twice, and he was still getting his 30, here's a great Wilt number. I love it because it just shows you who he was at the time. When they beat the Boston Celtics in 1967, it was a 5-game series. The final score of Game 5 was 140-116. They routed them in the second half. Wilt casually gave us 29 points, 36 rebounds, and 13 assists. And we didn't bat an eye. That was just Wilt. And then when he gets to the Lakers, now he's focusing on leading the league in field goal percentage. And how do you do that? You don't shoot. You do tips and dunks and lobs. and
Yeah.
putbacks. And you then reinvent yourself as an outlet passer. He was never an outlet passer with 76ers. So this Lakers team that won this, this 1972 team, Wilt was a tremendous defensive and outlet passer. And oh, by the way, he got his 15, 17 a night. Anyway, so
that's crazy how you just a 7-foot crazy athlete Will Chamberlain was just decide to lead the league in assists.
Really, just like that. He led the league in assists. I know, no, it was crazy, and they had a little run, but then again, it only lasted the 1 year. They got beaten in '68, and then he got himself traded to L.A.
Yeah,
Reinvent himself again.
I always like talking Larry Bird with you. Was there a chance that he left Bob Knight? I think he transferred out of one other school. He became a sanitation worker. Was there a world that Larry Bird never plays in the NBA?
Yes, and that's why I recommend the book Heartland highly. It's all laid out how close he came to not going to the Northwood and then eventually getting recruited. Knight, and it goes to Indiana, and that lasted a month. He left because he was socially incompatible, and he also didn't.
In what way?
Well, in one way, in that he was overwhelmed socially. He went to Indiana with $75 and two pair of pants. They were supposed to last him till Christmas, and he found himself that all these rich kids and all these normal people. He wasn't used to it, and then of course on basketball, Kent Benson apparently was a jerk in terms of pickup games and stuff, and Larry never forgot that. And Larry literally hitchhiked home on U.S. Indiana 37, but Knight had nothing to do with it. I mean, Knight did not. And I later spoke to Bob Knight many years later, and he told me he had a profound regret that he didn't do more to stop Bird from. But he didn't think he even needed him. That's the team, Bird. When Bird would have been a freshman, that's the team that lost one game after Scott May got hurt. And then the next year they went undefeated. We're in the 50th anniversary of the last undefeated NCAA champion. And the year before, if Bird had been on the rotation, they probably would have survived. They would have won back to back. But anyway, Knight regretted that. He did regret that he didn't do more to keep Bird from going home.
All right, last thing, Bob. Who's the greatest basketball player ever?
The greatest. Okay, the greatest virtuoso talent. Okay. It's Michael Jordan, and it's very simple. But if you want to talk about the centers are different now, the youngsters don't understand. There used to be a thing called this 5-man, and he played with his back to the basket frequently, if not exclusively, and he didn't wander out beyond the line. Okay, they're a different category. They're like total different species. But when you're talking about all-around basketball players, pass, shoot, dribble, defend, the whole package, there's two names, Michael and LeBron. And LeBron is bigger, stronger, faster, better rebounder, better passer.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing for my life tonight, I want Michael Jordan. There is no comparison in competitiveness and the big game capacity of Michael Jordan and LeBron James. So the answer is Michael Jordan.
Bob, thank you for taking the time. Don't hang up just yet. We're going to stop this recording, but don't hang off just yet. And thank you for taking the time, man. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's great. Enjoyed being with you.